Kamala Harris, a candidate for president in 2024, has recently announced her economic plan. Now, her plan includes some controversial ideas, and one of those ideas is price control. The idea is that the government can limit the price a specific industry charges for products or the profitability of those companies. Now, in this video, I will explain why price control doesn't work and why price gouging does not cause inflation, as Kamala Harris asserts in her political speeches. My name is Jeff Schuster, and you're watching Reengineering Politics, which provides objective information on political matters so that you can make informed decisions for a better America. Please like and subscribe to my channel to get notified when I publish new videos. I try not to inject live political events into my videos because my channel focuses on systemic problems and their solutions. This video is not about Kamala Harris, Donald Trump, or any other politician. It is strictly about what happens when the government tries to limit prices. When I'm not publishing videos, I coach small business owners. Here is how businesses earn profits and grow. The cost of the business could be supplies, labor, or anything else that they must purchase in advance to deliver their product or service to the market. Overhead is the cost of administration staff, their facility, vehicles, or any other cost required to do business. Profit is the amount the business charges above its costs. Now, in some cases, this profit is returned to shareholders as dividends. In other cases, this profit is retained and invested in growing the business. This business does not exist in isolation. Instead, it exists in a free market where consumers, competition, and the government are involved. Competitors have a similar business model as you, and they attempt to gain market share by offering a better product or service at a better price. This competition forces companies to charge as little as possible while still paying their people a living wage. Because of this pressure created by competition, companies attempt to create unique products to avoid competition as much as possible. Consumers in the free market will shop for the best product at the best price. Consumers will be more price sensitive when prices are high and they have little to spend. They will seek out high quality products when their wealth allows them to pay more. The way the market works is that some companies will become popular because of the quality they provide. Others may gain more customers because their prices are lower than others. Still, other companies will struggle to attract customers and they may go out of business. The companies that do the best in the free market grow their profits and they grow their businesses. The government also plays a role in the free market. The government taxes a certain percentage of each company's profits. In some cases, these profits are taxed twice, once from the company and then again when dividends are paid to shareholders. The government provides public infrastructure such as roads, a public education system, and other public services. Now, most importantly, the government regulates businesses. This regulation could protect the environment from pollution, or it could keep the competition fair, or it could just ensure that companies don't sacrifice public safety to earn greater profits. Labor is a substantial cost component in the business model. Most businesses attempt to reduce their labor costs because labor is a high cost of doing business. So when labor costs increase, businesses attempt to find alternatives to labor, such as outsourcing to low-cost countries and implementing automation. These businesses also seek to pay their employees as little as possible and still attract skilled employees. Since competitors are also seeking the lowest cost and highest skilled employees, there is a secondary free market with employment that ensures wages remain competitive. The government sets a minimum wage to prevent businesses from paying too low of a wage for unskilled labor. Companies will automate or outsource to compete in the free market if this minimum wage is too high. I have described an ideal free market. However, the free market can become corrupt. Market-dominant competitors can collude to keep prices artificially high. This means that they agree to charge higher prices instead of competing with one another. In the government's role as a taxer and regulator, they can create an imbalance in a free market. The government can offer tax advantages to certain industries, but not to others. State and local governments often give tax advantages to large companies that promise to bring jobs to their community. The government may strictly regulate an industry that drives up costs and make its product less appealing to consumers. Politicians will fund their campaigns with donations from companies hoping to gain any of the advantages I just described. This is a form of corruption by itself. Large companies sometimes want greater regulation in their industry to keep small competitors from entering their marketplace. Some companies become so dominant in a specific marketplace that it's difficult for competitors to establish a competing product or service. This large company that dominates their market is called a monopoly. This means consumers only have one choice, which allows the monopoly to set a higher price because there are no competitors to keep prices reasonable for all consumers. The government is supposed to break up monopolies when they occur to give consumers choice in a free market. In some cases, monopolies are allowed to exist because they may result in a better price for consumers. So this is really common with privately owned utility companies. In this case, the government regulates this monopoly's prices, hoping to be a substitute for competition in the free market. And while price regulation is a valiant effort by our government, it's no substitute for the low prices and high quality delivered by a free market. Now that you understand how the free market works, let's talk about how price control works. The government desires to make items more affordable for those who struggle to purchase necessities like housing, food, clothing, or medical care. They decide to set a price limit on a particular item. So here is what a business model looks like with price controls. The company will attempt to cut costs to maintain the same profitability that it had before the price caps. This means reducing wages, laying off workers, automating or outsourcing labor, and cutting non-labor costs wherever possible. This idea is problematic because most companies operating in a competitive free market have already reduced their costs to compete for market share. By laying off workers and cutting wages, employees experience a more dire situation with their living expenses than they did with inflation. Another step businesses may take is to consolidate. In the late 1990s, when oil prices were low, large oil companies started merging to cut overhead and remain profitable. Sadly, this creates a new kind of corruption in the marketplace that resembles a monopoly colluding with the government. When this happens, prices gradually creep back up. In fact, this actually happened with oil prices since these mergers happened. If companies cannot find a way to maintain profits with price controls, they will lower production of the items that have price controls and then focus their efforts on less price-controlled products and services. This creates scarcity. In other words, the supply drops even if demand is high. This happens because the government has constricted the one thing that regulates supply and demand in a free market, and that one thing is price. In several cases where companies do not believe that they can find an alternative product or service or alternative markets, they'll cease to be in business. There is no reason for a business to exist without profits. Price controls fail because it is a government solution chasing the wrong problem. I don't know why, but most on the left believe that inflation is caused by companies gouging their customers. They hear that a company is making record profits and think this is what's causing inflation. Companies earn record profits in an inflationary period because prices are up. If a company earns $1 million in profit during a traditional period and then earns $1.1 million in an inflationary period, the news reports that the company is making record profits. When the price of goods and services rise by 10%, a company must earn 10% more just to match its earnings before the increase. When adjusted for inflation, this company is earning no greater profit than it did before. The Soviet Union tried to make socialism work. In their model, the central planners forced the price, the supply, and the wages to create what they believed was an equitable society. Their experiment failed miserably. Their economic productivity was extremely low, and their people's lifestyle was terrible. Why? The free market is much better than the government at driving down prices, driving up quality, creating the best lifestyle for the most people, and creating the greatest diversity of products at different price points. In a free market, consumers dictate the quality and price of goods and services. In a heavily regulated market, the government is the only customer. If greedy companies are not causing inflation, what is? Simply put, inflation is caused by too much money chasing too few goods. When the government pays people not to work, this causes inflation. Work is what produces valuable products and services. If people aren't producing value and more money is entering the economy, prices of goods and services must rise. So let's take a simple example. Housing prices skyrocketed from 2020 through 2022. Why? Well, there were few houses and the demand for those houses was high. Now, if you wanted to sell your house and others were selling their homes at 30% more than what they had paid for their house, you'd be foolish to sell your home at a lower price. Does this mean that you're gouging your prospective buyer? Of course not. If you want to buy a house, you're also going to pay a higher price. There are 4 methods of reducing inflation the right way. The Federal Reserve can do some things to reduce inflation. They can print less money, and they can destroy the money in circulation to reduce demand. The Fed will also increase bank interest rates to make it less attractive for banks to loan money and less attractive for borrowers to borrow money. This reduced borrowing will reduce economic demand. This feels painful for anyone who wants to borrow money for a car or a house. It's also painful for a business that needs to extend or renew its bank credit. The Fed's method of reducing inflation is downright painful for employees who can't find work, as the unemployment rate will increase as other prices rise. Eventually, rising prices start to reduce demand and prices stabilize. Money is created by the government, which spends that money into existence. Recently, our government has been spending about $2 trillion more than it earns in tax revenues. This increases the money supply and it feeds inflation. If the government reduces deficit spending, it will reduce inflation because it will reduce the money supply. It's critical that such spending reductions be made in the areas that produce the least value in the economy. When the government pays people not to work, it increases the money supply and it reduces productivity at the same time. If it stops doing this, it's going to gain surpluses instead of deficits and drive prices down. One of the largest efforts that's causing this problem is housing and feeding many undocumented immigrants as they await the processing of their asylum claims. Another way to reduce the money supply is to increase taxes. Just like the government spends money into existence, it can also destroy money by collecting taxes. Taxation is another way that the government reduces companies' profits. While undesirable, it's a much better tactic than price controls to regulate inflation. All of this economic jargon, free market, supply and demand, profits, overhead, it doesn't matter to most people. Many people are hurting right now. So how can we help low-income earners pay for basic necessities? Well, that's a great question. and I suspect you may not like my answer. The way that anyone can improve their wealth is by increasing their productivity. This increased productivity may be gaining greater skills that are hard to find and worth more in the employment marketplace. This increased productivity may be working more hours. The increased productivity may be innovating a better marketing tactic for your small business. These actions will help you earn higher wages in the inflating economy. This higher productivity will also reduce inflationary pressures in the macroeconomy. If you want to learn more about how to climb the economic ladder in a free market, you may want to watch my video, Climbing the Economic Ladder. You ought to like this answer because it may give you confidence knowing that your lifestyle is in your hands and not the government's. And incidentally, the more money the government pumps into the economy that is not directly connected to production, the harder it is for you to create personal wealth, which would allow you to buy your house or your car or whatever you'd like to live the American dream. I want to thank you for visiting Reengineering Politics. I published a book entitled Trial and Error, Tales of Well-Meaning Political Decisions Gone Wrong. Now, this book contains 14 short stories illustrating how good intentions can backfire and hurt those they were meant to help. This book was published in 2014, so it may be a little bit dated, but the concepts are still valid. There's a chapter in Trial and Error entitled Bread is Too Expensive. This will show you how the good intention of controlling prices fails miserably when a mayor of Trial Town tries to provide affordable bread to his community. I've left a link to this book in the description below. My book, Engineering Unity, published last year, contains analyses of 15 different political topics, respectfully illustrating the positions of the left, right, and center. I've left a link to purchase this book in the description below as well. I'd love it if you like this video and you subscribe to the Reengineering Politics YouTube channel. Thank you for watching, and I hope you return for more political insight that's neither left nor right.